Welcome everyone back to the agency. This is Agent Pink, and today I'm going to read you a story. It's called Trick and Treat. It's a novel. Let me turn that down a bit. Alright. It's a novel. It's a visual novel, and it's a pretty... the description was pretty good. So let's just dive on into it. The sound of our steps, combined with that of the occasional nocturnal animal, is the only thing we can hear. It's terribly dark in this place. The dense vegetation makes it impossible to see the sky or night from the moon. Our flashlights are the only things that light up our way. At times like this, one begs to not run out of battery. We walk without knowing what we are really looking for, or better said, for no reason. We are just a group of boys, bored with our lives, trying to create a lasting memory on this night, instead of just staying home doing nothing. Today is October 31st, All Hallows Eve, better known as Halloween. 3 young men walk through a dark, but up until now nothing special forest, me being one of them. We are doing it to prove our courage. It's too bad there isn't a girl here to see how brave we are. Seeing it like that, one could say this is a meaningless effort. For a moment I stopped to look at my watch. It's 1:49 a.m. That means we have been walking aimlessly for more than 2 hours now. I am sure that many people would find a place like this terrifying. But once you get used to it, the fear disappears, making it feel like normal. What makes us afraid of the dark is that we cannot know what hides in it, what lurks in the shadows. But this is clearly an empty darkness. At that moment I sigh, feeling how tired my legs are. What is the point of being here? Clearly we had already demonstrated what we wanted. It would be best to return, I should tell them. I was about to speak when suddenly the atmosphere in the forest becomes strange. Suddenly, a cold chill runs through my body. It was like any other chill, except it was not going away. For no reason, the air's temperature dropped from one second to the other. So much so my breath becomes visible, turning into mist. It doesn't end there. The air is now filled with a rotten smell, just a little short from being unbearable. Images of worms and flies soon appear in my mind, giving me a really unpleasant feeling. We all stopped at that moment. What's happening? I asked, confused, while turning to look at my friends. By the expressions on their faces, it was easy to know that they were just as lost as I was. It was then that we heard footsteps nearby that did not come from any of us. We all got dead quiet after that. I don't know if it was out of fear or to check if it was not a mistake, but we stayed motionless, like statues, without making a noise, just looking at each other's faces, wondering the same thing. What's happening? As if I could know. We heard the steps again. They clearly belonged to a human, or at least to a large animal. But there is there is something strange about them. Sounds as if the person walked, dragging one foot. Just thinking about it made me shiver. Damn! What is this happening? Why is this happening? It makes no sense. We should have returned home before, but now it's too late to regret it. I have the feeling that we are being stalked by someone. The strange footsteps stop, but I'm still feeling the same presence nearby. I don't know where it is, but I know that it's looking at me. That cursed thing is looking at me. My heart is beating anxiously. It's almost as if my body was telling me to get out of there. But strangely, my friends seemed unable to perceive it. It seems that it's gone. It must have been just an animal, said one of them, convinced that we were safe. I would like to believe that too. We had a sigh of relief, however bad luck would soon strike us again. Unexpectedly, the forest becomes darker than before, in just the blink of an eye. But that wasn't the fault of the forest, but of our flashlights which went out. One of the three, only one, mine, was still working. What's going on? Did the batteries die? Asked one of them, scared, while they both beat them desperately, as if that was going to revive them. I can't blame them. The idea of walking in the darkness was not pleasant for anyone. But after a few moments, we had no choice but to resign ourselves to that. Once more, the sound of our footsteps is heard, but the silence is different now. We're not quiet because we have nothing to say, but because we are afraid. We continue walking despite the fear that invades us. Visibility is almost zero, but we have no choice. In theory, we were walking back, looking for the exit, but I cannot remember anything of this forest. We could be walking in circles and I would never notice it. Until it is too late. I hate the thought of it. I just want to get out of here. Suddenly my thoughts are silenced. We hear the footsteps of someone or something. Once more the three of us become statues, awaiting the presence to go. I hold my breath while feeling my heart beating anxiously. Damn! Get away from here and leave us alone. Hold on, let me read that. Damn! Get away from here and leave us alone! Unexpectedly, the steps are heard closer. This time, they do not disappear, but rather come at us. I can't stand it. Desperately, I move my flashlights everywhere, looking for the author of those footsteps, hoping for the light to reveal their identity, erase our fears. Nothing! 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 Is that all there is around here? Just empty air? My anxiety grows with each failed attempt. I refuse to believe that it was a ghost. Suddenly, when I move the flashlight again, I see a silhouette. I could not distinguish what it was, but for a moment, the light revealed something. Quickly, I pointed to the same place, only to discover it was gone. I held my breath anxiously. It was not an illusion. I am sure that I saw something. It was then that I hear something nearby. Without even thinking, I aim the light towards that place. What I found leaves us paralyzed with an expression of disbelief on our faces. It is a white cat with eyes of an intense red, which stands before us. Here, her look is not the friendliest, to say something. Somehow I get the feeling it's a female cat. Suddenly she lets out a thunderous meow that leaves us terrified. It sounded more like a lion roaring than a simple cat. The echo of her meow is heard throughout the forest, making it sound more sinister than it should be. It was then that suddenly an inexplicable force hits us three. Ow, my eyes. I fell to the ground, and little by little my eyelids closed. The fatigue becomes unbearable. I lose consciousness on the ground of the forest without knowing what it was going to happen with me. Interlude before night falls. It is a day like any other, so normal that it was almost painful. The only special thing that could be said about it is that it's October 31st. Far were the memories when I was a kid and went out with my friends to ask for sweets from house to house. Just remembering it made me sigh. I feel nostalgic. Some things were better when I was a child, or at least seems like that. There were some who had good costumes, whether superheroes or monsters. My friends and I, on the other hand, had to use our imaginations. Creativity was our costume, you could say, no matter how funny it could sound. I remember that my mother once painted red my face and told me, "You will be the devil." But it seems only she saw it that way. When we went from home to home, everyone thought I was the tomato man. But those things didn't matter to me since we always had a good time. If I asked for candy now, even if I had the best costume, I'm sure no one would give me any. Except perhaps a scolding for acting like a child when I am 17 years old. But anyway, I can't stay in the past. I must live in the present, no matter how little existing that might be. Back to reality, we are a good group of friends who don't have any plans for today. We are still not old enough to go to a disco, and I doubt guys as us would have any luck in that environment. The other option would be to go to a party, meet girls, and have fun. Everything perfect, except that nobody has invited us. Not being popular has its disadvantages. Hey, Axel! Let's have a couple matches. What do you say? My friend Steven called my attention while playing with the game console. Rush? I believe that that's what the game is called. A fast and quite complicated fighting game for me. I would normally agree to play with it, but for some reason I don't feel in the mood today. I don't have no desire to play now, I replied with discouragement. I almost feel bad for doing it. Boring. The AI is no rival for me, Steven said with confidence. That you're playing on normal difficulty does not help your argument. I don't feel like losing, but if you want, you can challenge to Alfred, I said, leading the attention to my other friend. I don't know how to play that, answered Alfred, doubting for a second. He is sitting behind the PC, but it seems that he isn't doing anything interesting. The screen only shows a lot of text. I think he is in Wikipedia. Hey, don't you have something more fun to do? I asked with discouragement without even thinking about it, what he was reading. Alfred looks at me surprised. The actual problem of society is that people are not interested in discovering their history. He is one of those pseudo intellectuals, always looking for any rare information to appear smarter than others. When we forget our past mistakes, we are doomed to repeat them, he added later. What are you talking about? This village is small, and its story is not interesting at all. Nothing outside of the normal has ever happened here. Alfred laughs mockingly after hearing that. Your ignorance is worthy of praise. He pauses, filling his chest with pride. The very fact it is a small town is the reason it's full of mystery. Did you know that 20 years ago on this date a man disappeared? So, what about it? I asked without being impressed or even interested in the least. Things like that happen all the time in all places. As I thought, you don't know the history despite living in this very place, Alfred said while adjusting his glasses in an arrogant gesture. There is a legend behind the disappearance. It is what I was reading. Alfred, after listening to him, I looked back at the computer screen with curiosity. It's then that I noticed that it was not Wikipedia, but some other page. Come on, read this and learn a little, Alfred said, inviting us to read what was on the screen. Both Stephen and I moved closer to read it. I swear I had a good night's sleep. Town of Aghaban, Oxfordshire Country, 1994. Huh? Oh, there we go. Okay. I came to this town with only 4,000 inhabitants to support them in an investigation. Truth is that never in my life have I seen something this strange. I won't say your typical detective-ish nonsense that I have seen thousands of strange things in my life. I've seen many crimes, yes, some difficult to solve, but all of them were human. Even if you don't know how they managed to perpetrate that crime, you know that they are people like anyone else. In this case, I don't think I'm able to say the same thing. Truth is that I can't understand what happened. I was called for the disappearance of a man named Matthew Graham, 23 years old, single. Last time he was seen, he was returning home from a Halloween party. He had drank alcohol but was still sober, or at least that's what witnesses said. Anyway, this is not something which can be explained with simple drunkenness. He apparently got lost on the way home and decided to enter the forest called Oakwood. It had rained yesterday, so the ground was wet and muddy. We could easily find his traces, which were leading deep inside the forest. Apparently, he walked for 3 hours before stopping. I say stop, but the truth is we don't know what happened then. The track suddenly ended up in a clearing in the forest. And that's all. There was no evidence of struggle, no other trace or pieces of clothing on the ground. There was no blood, no more footsteps, or anything else. The depths of his last footprints and the position they were in indicates that he was still walking. At no point he stood still. It was as if he had vaporized in the air. With all his clothes, in the middle of his walk. Obviously I can't believe such a thing, but I can't give another explanation. The only thing I remember is that near the footprints I sensed a faint smell of rot. However, there were no animal corpses nearby. It is ridiculous to think he suddenly started to decay and became Earth. In the end, the case was closed in just 3 days. No evidence of any kind. We couldn't say anything but that he decided to escape from the village. However, while officially there were no more to do, I couldn't sleep at peace. Thinking about it, what could have happened to him took away my sleep. In my mind, I thought all sorts of theories, like maybe everything was a plan developed by Matthew. But in the end, they all seemed impossible. I decided to investigate more on the issue. I searched the town for similar stories. To my surprise, I found 4 more, all young men. The story was always the same. They walked into the forest alone, disappearing without trace. Even more curious is that all of them disappeared on the same date, October 31st. But there is more. A detail that completely eliminates the possibility that there is a killer or kidnapper behind this, and that is the separation of the years. Roger Bacon disappeared in 1924. Michelle Smith disappeared in 1867. Jason Black disappeared in 1813. And the worst of all, Oswald Tyler disappeared in 1707. Wow. Let me just say something about this real quick. 1707 to 1813. That's over 100. That's 100 years right there difference. This could be a family abduction. Like the family was told if anyone trespasses into their woods, they kill them. That I could see. You know what I mean? Like if you're raised the same way as a family in your little woods, and you believe this strong enough, I believe it will keep on happening. But eventually, I think something would have happened. I don't know. That's interesting though. It simply couldn't be possible. My curiosity led me to dig deeper. I thought that the answer may be in the past of the forest. It was there that I discovered that what seemed to be a simple forest actually hid a great secret. There's a family that lives there. Before it was called the Oakwood or Oaks Forest, the place was called Witchwood. The word witch has a huge similarity to witch. Taking into consideration that it is an old name and language changes over time, the incidence that it was indicates that it was the forest of witches. I was right, yep. Apparently more than 400 years ago, the people of the village believed witches lived in the forest. Unfortunately, almost all the information is already lost. There were stories told in voice without a properly written record, of course. I just know that with this change of religion to Christianity, people stopped seeing the witches with good eyes and began to hunt them. Apparently, the last one before her death cast a curse on this forest, which even today should continue to exist. Anyway, obviously I cannot accept something like that as an answer. In the end, I have no other choice than accepting that each one of them escaped from the village, using the legend of the forest to make it look like it was something supernatural. Yeah, right. Interesting story. I didn't know that such a story was hidden in this town. I said honestly surprised. Even if it is a lie, it managed to hold my interest. Wait, there is something more, Alfred said at the same time he scrolls to the comments. We read what is written there. A couple of comments called our attention. Both of them talked about some creature. At that time, they felt a horrible fear for what could have happened to them. Well, the two comments share great similarities, but they could have been written by the same person. There are many others that deny it. Looked like many people went into the forest because of the legend, but couldn't find anything. I thought that you only read these things to look more cool before the girls. replied Stephen as a joke. Alfred giggles with a little shame. Partially, yes. He admitted that was a secret everybody silently knew. Well, now we have an activity for tonight, Stephen said at the same time he makes a face overflowing with enthusiasm. What? I asked, completely lost. I thought we were just killing time. Simple. Let's go into the forest, Stephen replied without hesitation. He seemed really fascinated by the story. Are you insane? Said Alfred, unable to believe what he just heard. You only needed to look at his face to know he did not like that idea. Despite everything you've heard, you want to go? Of course. It would be a test of courage among us three, replied Stephen, full of confidence, perhaps too much. He should relax a bit. Don't tell me you're afraid. No. Why should I be afraid? Answered Alfred at the same time he folds his arms, making a false gesture of security. It's more than obvious that you are afraid, Alfred. Almost as much as when you have to talk with a girl. And what about you, Axel? Don't tell me you won't come. Suddenly, Stephen asked me at the same time, looking at me mockingly. Don't tell me you want to be the chicken of the group. I hate that tone of voice he used. I will never give you that, I said without thinking, showing a confident smile and look. Well, let's not say more. Take your coats, backpacks, flashlight and some food. We are going to the forest. Stephen said, full of energy. Yo! We three said in unison, as if we were going to have some kind of private party, not really knowing what we were doing or what we were going to find. "2:13 a.m. I awake, completely confused, not knowing how much time had passed. My head hurts like hell, but I can't blame it. Unfortunately, the pain goes away quickly, just as my confusion. Soon I came back to my senses. My flashlight is lying on the ground, shining towards the empty air. I immediately picked it up. It was my only protection against the darkness that surrounds me. Then I remember that Stephen and Alfred were with me. Stephen! Alfred! Can you hear me? Without thinking, I screamed their names in the dark while trying to find them with my flashlight, but there is no trace of them. They are gone. Where the hell are they? And what the heck just happened? I really don't understand anything. Shit. We should have stayed at home. This is not a proof of courage. We could be in danger. I have to find them. 2:19 a.m. Little time has passed since I started to look for my friends, and I already can't stand this place. Going crazy in this forest, the darkness that covers it is unnatural. It is a darkness that steals your own sanity, replaces it with anxiety. To make it worse, the air is damp and cold as in winter, carrying a strong rot smell, as if there were corpses of animals hidden throughout the forest. Can't talk. The atmosphere in this place is oppressive. With every step you take, makes you more uncomfortable. Since I started to look for my friends, I felt that something is watching me, but there is nothing. I sigh with my voice full of frustration. I just want to get out of here. I continue walking, devoid of any hope. No matter where I look or how much I walk, I find nothing. I can't even hear the sounds of animals. Rather, it seems they are already dead and rotting. No, I have to calm myself, I said to myself. I stopped for a moment to rest. I breathed deeply, but the rotten air of this place does me no good. Immediately I start to cough, as if I had something stuck in my throat. Shit! 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 What am I going to do? This cursed forest seems endless, and even if by miracle I could escape, I cannot abandon Stephen and Alfred. I'm really screwed up. Again I sigh, feeling on the verge of tears. My frustration is building up, but I have to do my best to keep calm. If I fall into despair, then there is no doubt I will be joining the list of missing people. In the end, I decided to keep walking. Step by step, I should get somewhere. At least I was convinced that staying in the same place would not do me any good. Even if it was only to deceive myself. Feeling that I am doing something, I wanted to continue walking. Time passes without any changes. Only the sound of my footsteps can be heard. Knowing that as soon as you stop, you will be surrounded by a dead silence is a good incentive to keep walking. But my legs were already hurting. Suddenly I hear a crack at my feet. Instantly I take a step back, look below to see what made that sound. What is this? I whispered to myself, surprised, discovering that I had stepped on an animal bone. I believe that it's from an animal, although I do not rule out the possibility that it belongs to a person. But for my own good, I prefer not to think about it. An expression of anguish is drawn on my face. It is best to ignore it. I have to keep walking. Suddenly, my flashlight reveals something. Without hesitation, I point towards there again. And we're going to leave it here. It ends chapter 1. Episode 1 of Trick or Treat. Thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you in the next installment of the book. Ciao!